All right, you're listening to Not So Breakfast Show, the podcast for leadership and career development. And before we get into it this week, just a heads up, this is a re-release episode. We're flashing all the way back to episode 11, the one about the 3 base human fears. But Sasha is back in the country and I am back in the country, so we will be recording new episodes very soon. But for now, we know that you'll love this episode if you haven't heard it before. And if you have heard it before, this is a great banger to have in your ears again. So episode 11, let's get it. Hey there, you're listening to the Not So Breakfast Show with Sasha and Ish. All right, welcome to the show today. This is the one about the 3 base human fears, and we're going to do some exploration around what these fears are and how they might be holding us back. We also figure out what Sasha's doing. Maybe it's just a Hamilton thing.
I'm going around the supermarket and I'm not wearing anything from the waist down. And I keep seeing people that I know, and I go, look, it's okay. I'm just going to be round in the, in the undies and the clothes aisle shortly, and I'm going to buy some clothes. And I go round the aisle.
Then things get a bit weirder. It's going to be turning up to your exams naked and having your baby teeth fall out now. Now that I know the complete circuit of that third one. And I don't know what the heck this guy did.
But I don't know what your approach is, but I generally try and find who that person is and, either kill them or ruin their career.
But that's the show. Let's get it. All right, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, the one about the 3 base human fears, and we've got some insightful information around sometimes why we won't stand up, step up, and put ourselves out there when we need to. But joining me as always, Sasha, how are you today?
I'm doing so well, thanks, Ash. I'm not even remotely afraid of anything. I've got my big girl knickers on, and I'm ready for action.
Big girl knickers? Are we straight from pants to knickers?
Yeah, they're big. I'm a big girl.
You're a big girl today. That is cool. And we're not together again. We're separate again with the vast highway that separates Hamilton and Auckland.
Yes, we are.
So here that someone has actually messaged in and going to give us a great example of their worst job that they've ever had or done.
Yeah, you remember a few weeks ago we were talking about the worst jobs that we had. You had some delivery. I have some questions about that. You remember you told the story about how you were delivering this stuff and you couldn't find the place and it was dark and you had no map and it was the old days, so there was no phone to tell you where to go. And so you said you just quit. And the missing information was, did you return the stuff you were supposed to be delivering?
Yeah, I did return the stuff I was supposed to be delivering because I was actually selling gym memberships at that place. So when I went back to work to sell gym memberships, of course, they were running the telemarketing out of the upstairs office. So I just left it by the door and no words were spoken around why I did not return to the door or past the door. I think everybody just realised they had a fail.
And didn't deliver it. Okay, good. Because, I just wanted to check that because I was worried there'd be some people out there, and actually it's my mum. My mum was worried about the legality of whether there was still stolen goods in your car. So that's great. We've clarified that. We asked you guys what was some of the worst first jobs you've had, and the lovely, wonderful Michelle Pearson from Waikato Real Estate has chimed in with this beautiful example. I'll read it like she's written it. I've just finished my instructor training at Les Mills in Hamilton. My first time teaching was to cover a pump class from an amazing superstar hunk of an instructor called Johnny G. So first of all, I'm surprised. I did not know that Hamilton had superstar hunky instructors, but that's good to know.
Johnny G was a good-looking man, Sash.
So apparently he had a room full of adoring fans, and then Michelle says, then I showed up. Half of the class left when I walked onto the stage. Then I was just so deflated, but I taught the class, and then I got put on the worst slot on the timetable, the 6:20 a.m. slot. But that amazing first and so bloody uncomfortable job, however, then took me to Dunedin, Auckland, then Hong Kong, all instructing group fitness, and you have to start somewhere. So thank you, Michelle, for sharing that. I can't imagine how soul-destroying that would be to step up onto the stage and then have half the audience walk out. I mean, that's nightmare stuff, right?
It is nightmare stuff. And how do people sometimes recover from that? Because those sometimes become defining moments where it's like, man, that is a fail. I do not want to experience anything like that again. or it could spark something that drives you and go, how do I actually, avoid that happening because this is something that I want to do?
I want to about the ability to look at that situation and understand how much of that is actually about you and how much of that is about other things as well, right? Some people never take any feedback personally, and that's a mistake. And some people take every bit of feedback personally, and that's a mistake too. So, yeah, interesting, eh?
It is. And really, today we're talking about some base human fears. And I think it segues quite nicely into that conversation because when those moments happen, they sometimes trigger something within you. And when you have that awareness of maybe what that trigger was, you might be able to at least put some analysis around why you responded that way, or put some tools and strategies in place so that you don't respond that way, possibly to a similar situation in the future.
Yeah, if you have switch on that self-awareness again so that you understand where you are vulnerable, so understand what your risks are. So when we talk about base human fears, it's things that threaten us, things that we want to avoid feeling. And so if you can anticipate a situation where you might feel a particular way, it's really useful to be able to say, oh, that's just that boring old thing that I experience where I get afraid of this thing. So I can actually just persevere through that because I anticipate it, I experience it, and I move on from it. It doesn't have to control everything about you in that moment.
Yeah. So why don't we start with the first one? And the first one is really the fear of not being liked. And I think this one is quite an interesting topic for the fact that a lot of people may not put out an opinion, may not take a chance, may not put themselves out there because, well, what if someone doesn't like me as a result of what I do, what I'm saying, and how would that make me feel? I don't know if you've got any examples of times where this has become true for you, Sasha. Is this something that resonates with you or not?
I think it's something that terrifies me, not so much this idea of whether people like me or not, because I grew out of caring about that a long time ago. And in some respects, I'm really lucky. Yeah, really lucky that I generally don't care too much what other people think of me. But the terrifying bit is how rare that is to find in a person, because just about everybody is very concerned with what other people think. And it's really natural and it's a very human thing to want to fit in. It's a human thing to want to be accepted and to want to be loved. And the result of that is that we can sometimes be afraid to stand out or afraid to take a risk or to let people know what we think because we absolutely don't want to hear from our colleagues and our friends that we have in some way upset them or let them down or behaved in a way that doesn't accord with their values or the things that they want. And so we can live this really kind of disconnected or this very quiet life where we just end up being really vanilla. And that's a horrible way to live when we're not being true to the fullest expression of who we are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think sometimes that can even start really early, right? Like in our school peer groups, it's, do you want to be the person that is saying something that's an unpopular or you feel is right and you want to express an opinion, and then suddenly you have the judgment of your peers, and what does that look like? And we know what kids are like, and they ostracize people because of the way they might want to think different or because of an opinion. And yet it's a real leadership trait for younger kids to be able to stand up and say, I don't agree with that, or I want to be nice to this person and I don't care that you're not being nice to this person. But that fear of not being liked, it's almost like an acceptance thing that can happen early on. And if you have enough references for that, then it can become something that continues on, and you may not be recognizing it in a meeting or in a work situation, but that could be where it's come from.
Yeah, completely. And so I think most of us have experiences from our childhood where either we've been ostracized or we've been part of a group that was ostracizing someone else, and we've been stuck where we know that how the group was behaving was horrible, but we weren't the ones that stood up and we regret that, or perhaps we were on the receiving end of some nastiness and that's impacted us moving forward. So there's a couple of aspects to this. One is if you have deep psychological trauma from your childhood, this is not the podcast for you because we're going to give it the once over lightly. We're going to say something like, get some healing, get some help. But recognize that if you are stuck in this trap of perpetually ruminating on what people think of you, rest assured most people aren't thinking of you at all. They're thinking about themselves. So you know those times if you use the meeting, we talked about meetings last week, you'll be in a meeting, you say something stupid, on the way home, all you do is replay over and over again in your head, oh, I said that stupid thing, people aren't going to like me, they're going to hate me, I'm not going to get invited to that staff do, and all of this goes on in our head, and we're just making up a story about something that happened that's not true. Most people won't even remember what you said because they're thinking about themselves. So I think it's not that we want to give people permission to go around being an asshole because, I don't care what people think of me. So many people who talk about, I'm set free to be myself, they're actually dicks because they parade their freedom of expression in a way that actually inhibits others. It doesn't give other people space, to grow or space to be. But it's really damaging when you are perpetually living in this state of what do people think of me. There's a great expression that says what people think of you is none of your business. You can't control what's going on inside someone's head. And I think what's a useful process to do is to, when you're in that situation, is to ask yourself, what do you want your legacy to be? Or if legacy is too big a concept, how do you want people to remember you after an interaction? And if you say, well, I want them to say that person made a contribution, or that person was courageous, or that person stood up for what was right, or that person expressed an opinion that was different and that opened my eyes to something. For me personally, I would much rather be respected than be liked. And I'm not at any risk at being over-liked, right? It's not something that's going to happen for me. I've waved that ship goodbye. But I come back to saying, I don't want to be afraid of the judgment of others.
And we can probably put the reverse filter on this as well, because there are some people out there that they'll say things like, well, people just need to take me the way I am. I just say what's on my mind. And if people don't like it, well, that's their issue. And I kind of say, well, if you're upsetting people a little bit every now and then, that's just life. But if you're constantly being a dick, it's time to stop being a dick. There is an awareness that you do need to be able to operate as a contributing human being within a work environment. And your value to the group is in your ability to add value and work within a team. So there's almost two sides of that continuum when it is here. The person that won't contribute because they go, if my idea is wrong, if my opinion is not valued, people won't like me. And then the other side of it was, I don't even care if people don't like me. I'm just going to put it out there. In fact, I'm going to do it to the point where people don't like me. We really need some congruency between that, somewhere in the middle lane.
Yes, I think the simple thing for people to ask themselves is there stuff I'm not doing that I want to do because I'm afraid of the judgment of others and I don't want others to look down on me and I'm scared about what people will think. And if you have any of those moments through your personal life, through your professional life, you might be a guy who says, I really want to go and do some theatre, but I think all my sports mates will, think I'm stupid. As soon as you find yourself not doing something or not saying something because you're afraid, that's the recognition point where you go, screw that. I don't want to be that person that just lives in a little box that conforms to everybody else.
All right, so let's have a look at base fear number 2. And base fear number 2 is the fear of being seen as incompetent, which is basically another way of saying imposter syndrome. We can talk about imposter syndrome, which is kind of that voice in your head or that feeling you get where it's you're never quite good enough or you feel like you're not going to be able to measure up. It's almost like there's a voice that says, today's the day. Everybody figures out I don't know what I'm doing. Everybody's going to know that I shouldn't have got this role. And it's that nagging little voice in the back of your mind that says you're not good enough, you shouldn't be here, and everybody's going to find out about it.
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. Whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview, the 30-minute presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-minute presenter program.
Yeah, that's a great description of what imposter syndrome is. And I think it's particularly challenging for us at the age that we're at now. And part of that, and we've talked about this before, is that some of us are starting to get into positions of responsibility. And, on a society level, we lead bigger teams, or we lead larger organizations, or we're making a difference in our volunteer community. And you suddenly have this realization that we're the grown-ups now. We are the people in charge. And for many of us, that gives us a bit of a holy heck moment, and we're forced to reckon with this internal conflict where we're afraid of being found out. But it's tough. What do you do about it?
Yeah, this was definitely one of my ones. I felt early on, as I was starting to get opportunity, and the fact that I hadn't nailed my schooling, and I hadn't been to uni, and I, wasn't the person that understood all the detail that was going on in the conversations, that I shouldn't have been in the conversations, or I shouldn't have been given the opportunity. And really, I fought with that for such a long time, because people were giving me these projects or these speaking gigs or these times that I could step up, and I was like, why me? Like, what have I done to deserve that? Surely they're going to figure out I don't actually know what I'm doing. It's pretty much all jokes and smoke and mirrors.
Is that wrong?
Once the smoke clears, it's just the naked magician on stage, and suddenly all the tricks are there and everyone can see what you were really doing. It's like behind the curtain on The Wizard of Oz, right?
And I have this thing where I don't have the fear of not being liked, and I don't have the fear of being seen as incompetent. And I think partly that's because the way our systems are set up, and you talked to this in terms of education. I'm someone who the education system worked for. So throughout my life, from a very young age, I've had validation after validation after validation. And that doesn't make me a great person. That just means that the particular system that our society has adopted for measuring achievement worked for me. And there's very few people that it actually works for. So I'm one of these kind of educational anarchists that say we should burn our schools and start again, because we're giving kids all the wrong messages about what really counts. If you're a person who hasn't had a lot of that ongoing early validation, it's much easier to feel the things that you describe, which is that, their feelings of unworthiness, or I'm not, people are going to find out that I don't know what I'm doing. Here's my qualifier to that. What I will let you know is that I have imposter syndrome dreams. And so I don't experience it in what I call real life, but when I'm asleep, particularly when I'm under pressure, I regularly have stress dreams. I don't know, have you ever got a book out on interpreting dreams?
No. I haven't.
Okay, all right, so why not? Do you have normal dreams? I'm going to tell you about a couple of my stress dreams. So I have one stress dream where I'm at the supermarket and I'm in the aisle and I'm going around the supermarket and I'm not wearing anything from the waist down. And I keep seeing people that I know, and I go, look, it's okay. I'm just going to be round in the, in the undies and the clothes aisle shortly, and I'm going to buy some clothes. And I go round the aisle, and you, through the whole course of the dream, you go through the entire supermarket, and you never find what you're looking for. And it's a confidence thing, because I keep explaining to people, I'm really sorry, I just forgot to get dressed this morning. And in my head, I'm going, you're an idiot. How did you come to the supermarket with no clothes? So that's on some level my subconscious messing with me. If you guys are listening to the podcast, I want you to see Ish's face, because Ish is looking at me like I'm the craziest lady on earth. But I know that heaps of you have that same dream, where you're naked in the supermarket, or you turn up to teach group fitness and everything starts to go wrong, or you're in a meeting and you cough and all your baby teeth fall out. I need some validation here. Tell me it's not just me. Someone else has the baby teeth dream. Come on.
Baby teeth. And so your baby teeth fall out and you have no teeth?
Oh, no, your teeth are still there, but you just cough and you have a little bit of teeth and you just slide them into your bag and then you cough again and more teeth come out in the meeting. It's really normal-ish. You can't dream shame me.
I have the dream that I can fly, and sometimes I can fly, but sometimes I can't. But it's like...
That's imposter syndrome. You can't fly. Don't even try to fly. So if you do have imposter syndrome, you have that fear that people will find out you're incompetent. What can you do about that? What do you do? How do you manage your stress around that?
I did get a little bit of help with it through conversations with some coaches and stuff.
Therapy. He had some therapy. Just call it that.
Had some therapy about it. And what they were saying is, what are you basing it on? Like, where's the example of that being true? And when I actually started to unpack that, there really wasn't any examples. It was more in my head. I had more examples of where I had actually stepped up and had the evidence and had the proof and the competency. But I think you're exactly right. It was based on an education system that let me down, probably a learning style that's a bit dyslexic. And when those two things collided, it just didn't set me up for success as far as what I was comparing success to and who I was comparing to. And we've talked about, comparing people is just one of those things that when you start to compare, you're always on the back foot anyway. And it wasn't until I kind of found my own style and found my own way and had more evidence for the fact that I was totally competent in different ways. And it was the way that my brain was wired and the way that I did things that actually was unique and allowed me to look at things from different angles. And once I kind of discovered that allowed me to navigate that a lot differently.
I think that's so helpful. And I think it's also useful to examine our attitudes to failure. So in the tech world, we talk about failing fast. You just push a product to market, it doesn't work, you try again, you iterate, and we've got to get okay with failure and not wanting everything to be perfect. But that's so different to the way many of us have been raised. And we get to this point in our life and, we can all reflect on career failures that we've had or moments that haven't worked out. And it's how we rationalize those to stop them being handbrakes on us moving forward. So most people know about my terrible speaking experience, the worst talk I ever gave in my whole entire life, where about 3,000 Swedish people didn't listen to a word that I said. It was terrible, right? And that's evidence of being really bad at what I had set out to do in my career. So I can't look to that and say, well, there's evidence of me being great. There's evidence of me being demonstrably useless. But that's not the only experience, and I'm not solely defined by that one incident. So we have to find ways of dealing with the failures that we do have. And one of the best ways to do that is to look at how children deal with failures. So children are learning stuff all the time, and they learn by trial and error. That means failing. They fall off their bikes. Now, when our kids are learning to ride their bikes, we go, keep going. We put training wheels on, then we take training wheels off. That's the same with stuff in our career. We're going to make mistakes. So what? Doesn't mean that we are destined to be useless at a particular thing.
That's right. And, if we think about the feedback example, sometimes when you are doing big speaking gigs and they send out the feedback form and you have 99 people come back saying, you were the greatest speaker I've ever heard in my entire life. I was riveted. And then that one person who just puts down, I didn't get it. And which one do we go home and we think about?
We wake up at night thinking of the person who says, she was okay.
You were better than okay, Sash.
She was a little bit, the cool thing about when that happens for me, I don't know what your approach is, but I generally try and find who that person is and, either kill them or ruin their career.
Put them in a box. All right, so why don't we talk about base fear number 3? And base fear number 3 is the fear of being seen as insignificant. So, Sash, do you want to maybe kick us off on a little bit of context around what that might mean for people?
Yeah, well, if you've recovered from the fact that there's so many base fears, it seems unfair that there are 3 of them, right? Because there's so much that we are having to deal with just in terms of getting up and trying new things and growing. But I can speak really personally to this one, the fear of being insignificant, but because it's the one that I most experience. So I don't really experience the other 2. But I have this nagging sense of wanting to make my life matter and wanting to be noticed and wanting to count. And the irony is you can see it in everything I do. So even wanting to be a speaker and being at the front of the room, there's a huge part of that is, notice me. And if you don't manage that so that it comes from the right place, that you can still stand up in front of a room in service of the room, not in service of your own ego. But that's really hard when there's such a desire to be noticed. And I've done a little bit of work, a little bit of therapy, trying to understand why I have this sort of compelling need. And we're not entirely sure where it comes from. I was really well loved as a child. There is a school of thought that says it partly for me. Anyway, it comes from my stature. So those of you who don't know me, we'll put a photo up on Instagram because I found the other day, it's a school photo of my netball team. And honestly, I shit you not, I'm half the size of some of the girls in my netball team, both in height and in girth. And it makes me feel like maybe my whole life I was worried that I would just kind of get run over by people. And so what I've developed as a sort of an antidote to that is this larger than life personality that screams, don't forget me. But because I'm aware of it, I can see how it can drive behavior that helps me, and I can see how it drives behavior that hinders me. And I've got to be really careful that I'm not somebody who's whining for praise and attention. And that I make sure that when I'm vulnerable with, hey, I need a bit of love right now, that I'm doing it not only in service of my ego. Do you experience this one?
No, this one for me doesn't resonate as much as the other ones. And I think we can put the filter on both ends of the spectrum again here. So you have where this manifests itself in a work environment is you'll either have the person that won't put their ideas forward or won't put themselves out there, because if I do, what if no one does anything with that? I just couldn't do that. If people didn't, take my idea and do something with it, I'd just be seen as insignificant, and I don't want to put myself there. And then there's the other version, which is, well, I'm always going to, and I'm always going to be the loudest in the room, and I'm going to be significant in the room at the distraction of everybody else. And again, we're looking for that congruency between those two as well.
Yeah, and how does that fear help me, and how does it hinder me? And to be conscious about that. And I think it's particularly useful to also reflect on this if you lead others or any teams that you work in. There are some people in your teams that need a little more praise and affirmation because insignificance is a thing for them. There's others who need reassurance that they've done a good job and that you do see their levels of competence, and that when you give them feedback, you're not questioning their competence, you just see that they have potential for more. And we've got to help build processes into our teams where we can critique each other's work without people's sense of self and likability being at stake. And so we can design good processes around that so that people can flourish.
Yeah, so I think even your ability to just sense check maybe against those three things and which one of those resonates with you is helpful. Like Sasha said, we're not here to do therapy in this session. We're just skimming over the top. But sometimes when you hear these things, and if we kind of recap through those, so the fear of not being liked, the fear of being seen as incompetent, and the fear of being seen as insignificant, one of those, maybe even two of those, will just resonate with you. And you kind of go, actually, that is a little bit like me. I wonder what that's based on. And is that actually true? And next time I feel it, am I prepared to maybe challenge myself and think a little differently? I bet you there were people that tuned into this and they thought when they heard the three base human fears, it was going to be clowns, it was going to be being buried alive.
Buried alive in a box.
Or it was going to be turning up to your exams naked and having your baby teeth fall out now. Now that I know the complete circuit of that third one.
Some people have the repeating fear that you've got an exam and you haven't done any preparation for it. But as we know, that was just...
my education.
That was just school for you.
That was just Tuesday.
So last week I promised that I would read the Barack Obama book, and I'd be lying if I said I finished it, but cut me some slack. It's 900 pages and I'm well in. So it's called A Promised Land, and there's a couple of things that I love about this book that I want to share with you. First of all, Barack Obama is an American president who speaks in full sentences. I mean, for that, it's like an enormous relief. Barack Obama is an American president who didn't employ only his family members and sycophants into positions of responsibility. Phew, that's amazing. What I actually love about this book, and to be clear, when you write a book, and having written a book with a couple of others myself, I understand this process, that you've got time to agonize about every word that you put into the book. So what I love about this Barack Obama book is that he is self-effacing, and he talks about his failures. And in one example, he's talking about running for a particular election, and he realizes in hindsight that he wasn't doing it for the right reasons, and it was all about his own ego. And I love seeing that. I love hearing him talk about things that he made, decisions he made for the wrong reasons, and it humanizes him and it gives you an insight into his decision-making process. And I think that's fantastic. But he's also smart enough to know that by showing us that side of him, we like him more. So he's deliberately put in those bits about being self-effacing and the mistakes that he's made. So everything you read has an element of being edited and people are thinking about how it impacts on others. But I think there's some really powerful examples of perseverance, of not caring about what others think, of having to just make decisions based on what you believe to be right. And in that regard, it's a really inspiring read. Let me also encourage you that the book has a number of swear words in it. And apparently on the audiobook, which he reads himself, he does all the swears. So if 900 pages freaks you out, just download it on Audible and listen to Barack Obama say all the swear words, and that might be quite fun too.
That does sound fun because he's definitely cornered his market when he went to 900 pages.
That's
he's about 800 pages past where I like to play.
Could I entice you? There's photos, family photos in the middle, so something to look forward to after the first 300 pages. Okay, so time for my life hack of the week. I've been thinking in this lead into Christmas about how much stuff we have and how much stuff we buy and how much I am a sucker for all the beautiful Christmas stuff that's in the shops. And it's terrible for the planet. It's bad for my wallet. My kids have got more than enough. So here's my life hack. Right before you go to buy that thing that is screaming to you, buy me and you'll live happily ever after. Buy me and you won't loathe yourself so much. Buy me and I will make you happy. Right before you make that decision, just put a micro pause in and think, do I need this? Does my niece need this extra piece of plastic? I can tell you right now that none of the women in your life want the shitty little soap gift pack you're buying them from the warehouse. So do everybody a favour, put a micro pause in and go, no, let's just buy one less thing this Christmas.
Well, I haven't got a life hack this week, but I am watching something on Disney Plus, which I am loving at the moment. It's The Mandalorian. I mean, when I was a kid, all I wanted was Star Wars on TV as some sort of series where it wasn't 10 years between the movies. And it just makes me feel like a kid again. I'm just watching the show. It's overacted. It's a bit cheesy. He goes in and saves the day every time, and I love it. I just sit there and just that whole nostalgia for me around Star Wars. I just love it. So if you haven't checked it out, it's a great watch with your kids. It's not too scary. It's got Baby Yoda in there. He's not really Yoda, but Baby Yoda. Let's call him Baby Yoda for the sake of the show. And yeah, it's just a great show to watch with your kids. It's really, really fun.
You lost me at Disney Plus, but I'm there with you in spirit.
All right, that's it for the Not So Breakfast Show for this week. Thank you very much for joining us as always. Again, we love the shout outs, so if you do want to put us on the gram or you do want to send your favourite episode to a friend, that would be cool. We also will put out online very, very shortly a way for you to ask us some questions directly into the show, and there's a little wee link you can click on, record us a question, and we'd love to profile you in the Not So Breakfast Show. Sash, anything you want to say as we close out?
Yeah, feel the fear. Feel the 3 base fears and do it anyway. Feel the fear, do it anyway. Understand it, unpack it, get over it. Go!
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. Whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview, the 30-minute presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-minute presenter program.